question from Warren. And Warren says this: I was listening to your content on the Olympic lifts and began to wonder, when or why should an athlete choose the hardstyle clean and jerk and snatch ballistic lifts over the barbell Olympic lifts and vice versa? As opposed to an either or premise, can you elaborate on the pros and cons of either approach? What is there to miss out on or gain in spending time with one approach over the other? Okay, so I'm an Olympic lifter, but I'm also a master kettlebell instructor. So I feel like you're asking me which one is my favorite daughter. You know, it's a tough question, and I ain't gonna answer it. And because they're both my favorite, and I like both. So the advantage of the Olympic lifts, well, for me, there's a big advantage. You can compete. You know, you can go to a meet and step up on the platform. They'll have officials there. They'll have loaders. They'll have chalk, and you can compete. You can measure yourself against people who weigh about the same amount you weigh. People of the same gender and masters, people basically the same age group. You can just measure and see how things are going. As a discus thrower, Olympic lifting was the reason I threw far. In hindsight, I kind of wished I'd have done maybe more power cleans than squat cleans. In hindsight, I probably didn't need to go as heavy as I used to go all the time, because again, how much it beats up on that central nervous system. But the thing about the Olympic lifts, when you say whole body movements, I don't know of anything that's more whole body. You take the weight from the ground and you put it overhead. In the snatch, you do it very quickly. In the clean and jerk, you have the two movements, and there's a lot of load. I've said this many times on this podcast that, if you only had two goals, to clean and press your body weight and snatch your body weight, for most of our listeners, all your dreams would come true. If you can snatch and clean and press your body weight, you are strong, you're flexible, you're mobile, and you'll probably look pretty good. I think I mentioned in one of my podcasts recently that one of my former throwers is becoming a throws coach. And she asked me a question about, what should I do with the men that she's coaching? I said, well, a good thing for you to do is to encourage them to clean and press their body weight and snatch their body weight. And she goes, yeah, but they're so far away from it. And I said, are they far away from it because of body fat or because of strength? Because, if you should weigh 200, but you're walking around weighing 300, which 50%, or whatever that percent would be, a third of your body is fat. That's a lot. Well, you can approach this two ways. If you're a 300 pounder clean and jerking, clean and pressing 200, you can either put your nose to the grindstone in the weight room and just keep fighting that great fight, or maybe drop a few pounds. The interesting thing is, I think both options would make most of the throwers I interact with better. I think the kettlebell Olympic lifts, and you pick the clean, the jerk, and the snatch. One thing is, you don't have so much of the needs for the flexibility that you do with the barbell. And that by itself is a bonus for a lot of the people I work with. When I first started getting kettlebells, one of the things I picked up is most of the kettlebellers I knew were broken from sports, usually strength sports, but they were all broken. And one of the things I heard universally when I first started kettlebells is how, you get this big engine guy saying, I feel like I can train again. Kettlebells are pretty, there's a phrase in kettlebell coaching, there are no wrists in kettlebells. Well, a lot of the guys I work with, including myself, I broke this wrist. I've had 2 surgeries on it. And I'm not supposed to be able to do that ever again, but I am. So one of the things I liked when I was able to, when I first did kettlebells, I was surprised at how nice it was. When the weather changes here in Utah, I usually know early because of my wrist issues. I'm always amazed when people say that people with artificial hips and metal in their body and arthritis can't tell. We're told by doctors, oh, that's just imaginary. You don't know when the weather's changing, except I know when the weather's changing. Kettlebells are very friendly to beat up broken athletes. I think the learning curve is a lot quicker. I think I could probably teach you the kettlebell snatch so that you're using it for training purposes. If not in one training session, certainly in two. And the only thing I know I can teach you the basics of it. It's just that it does, until you get it right, there is you do get a little beat up on it. You know, a lot of people the bell smashes on their hands, which is easily fixable, but you have to go through the process of learning how to do it. Kettlebells are generally quicker to teach, quicker to learn. Kettlebells tend to be easier on the joints. Kettlebells can also be stored in a corner versus when I do my Olympic lifts, I now have, I think I have 5 Olympic bars. But I still have to pull the Olympic bar out. I have to make sure I have a platform, which I do. You know, I stack it and I got to put the weights on. It takes up a lot of room. When I drove across the United States last year, I had an Olympic lifting meet. I had the state meet. On our team almost won. We lost by like just a point for the state championship, which would have been wonderful for those of us on the team. When I drove across the United States, I took my barbell and my bumper plates and my lifting boots and a whole bunch of other stuff. And remember, I have my Maserati I had to slide the barbell. I had to put the seats down, the back seat, slide the barbell through the trunk, had someone have to pick it up in the middle, slide it on the console. So when I drove across the United States and Canada, I had my barbell right here. And I was hoping I was get pulled over by a cop so I could explain that. The years before, I've traveled with kettlebells. Let me show you what to do with the kettlebell. You take the kettlebell, you put it in the back seat, you put a seat belt on it, and you're done. When you pull over to the side of the road and you want to get to your goblet squats in or your cleaning presses or your armor building complex in, you pull over the side of the road and you pull it out and you do the workout. In fact, the single hand kettlebell complex, I filmed it in Island Pond, Vermont. You can see the island of the Island Pond in the background there. I have pictures of me Olympic lifting on the side of the road, and it takes just a lot longer to do it. So for ease of teaching and ease of transport and ease of storage, I think the kettlebell is better. For carryover into the sports I coach, American football, the track and field, it's the Olympic barbell. But the best thing to think of, and this is the money one, Warren, is the answer is both. If you can get yourself to use your barbell and use your kettlebell, and you can work them together, like my good friend Tim Anderson always says about easy strength and original strength, they're peas and carrots. But he says in that Forrest Gump style. But I think barbells and kettlebell Olympic lifts are peas and carrots. I have a program called the Transformation Program where I actually brought in on one of the days. So the Transformation Program, it's real simple. It's the fastest workout I have. It's if an athlete's coming off American football, getting ready for track season, if it's late in the season and we just need to keep some lean body mass up, we want to lift, but we don't want to do too much. Real quick, it's 3 sets of 8 with an exact minute rest. And that sounds easy until one of the workouts, which I'll come up. So generally it can be military press and power curl, or it can be bench press and power curl, or it can be incline bench press and power curl. That's day 1. That's only 6 sets. 3 sets of 8 of each of those, minute rest. Workout to take less than 9 minutes most of the time. But you get a good pump, you feel good. 2 days later, it's the hard day. Front squat and overhead squat, 3 sets of 8. Week 1, you do front squats to warm up the overhead squat. Week 2, overhead squat to warm up the front squat so you can add some load. And on the 3rd day is the whip snatch, the wide grip, high hang snatch, and the clean grip snatch, 3 sets of 8. Well, I experimented with keeping the first 2 days the exact same and then doing high rep kettlebell snatches for the 3rd day. And I got to tell you, I believe the first time I experimented with this, the very first time, I didn't have a kettlebell. All I had was a 61-pound dumbbell. Now, why it was at 61 pounds is because the dumbbell, it was an adjustable dumbbell. It was an Olympic dumbbell, and I put on 25-pound plates, 50, but the dumbbell was it was a kilo plate, so it was 61 pounds, and so I would do all these dumbbell snatches, and it didn't work out very well. And then a couple of years ago with Coach Barbera at Juan Diego, I did the same experiment, doing those high rep kettlebell snatches. And I got to tell you, as conditioned as I thought I was getting in with the 3 sets of 8 in the whip and clean grip, it was nothing like doing hundreds of kettlebell snatches. So there's a very simple program for you that would combine barbell and kettlebells and keep it very minimal. And someone might say, well, how many snatches can you do in 10 minutes? Well, my record is 200. I mean, that's a lot of snatches. So I hope that helped. And it was a fun question. If I think anything else, or we can have a discussion in the notes below, I'll add it too. Because Warren, I think this is a fun question. So thank you.